see, the thing that I think empaths don't know really is that boundaries make people feel safe.
Yeah.
So if you can't, especially children, but really anybody.
Yeah.
And if people can't feel your boundary, they don't really feel safe with you.
Yeah.
Which is not something we think. Also, having boundaries breeds respect. So when we set clear boundaries, clear, kind, compassionate boundaries, people respect us.
Mm-hmm.
And we respect other people. It's mutual respect.
Welcome to the That's Where I'm At podcast. I'm Laura, happily divorced after spending years with a narcissist. I believe keeping secrets will make you sick and that they always come to light in the end. As women, we're often told to be quiet, don't share your story, don't talk about the things we go through. It's making women sick, sad, and suicidal. We don't have to be on the other side to share our story. This show is for the women still in the middle of the mess, but showing up bravely as they heal. It's time to share these stories with each other so we can learn, grow, and heal together. I'm Laura, and that's where I'm at. Please take note that this episode may contain subjects that may be triggering to certain listeners. Please take care when listening today. Hi, guys, and welcome to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today, I have Lisa. Lisa is the author of the #1 best-selling book, The Art of Psychic Reiki, and the upcoming book, Energy Healing for Empaths. Oh, that sounds very interesting. Lisa is a psychic counselor and Reiki master teacher with over 25 years of experience. She has trained more than 1,000 people in Reiki and has conducted more than 15,000 individual sessions. She is also the host of the radio show and podcast, The Miracle of Healing on Empower Radio. She specializes in training emerging psychics, empaths, and healers so that they can fully step into their gifts, since the world needs all the healers that it can get. So forgive me for messing that up, but hi, Lisa, welcome.
Hey, Laura, thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm super happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. And oh, my Lord in heaven, when I have to read, I guess, I'm just stumbling over my words, but I'm so excited to talk to you about that kind of stuff because I think, oh my gosh, empaths, right? I don't know. A lot of people I know will walk around saying, I am such an empath. And so these things are bothering me and stuff like that. And I don't think people really know what to do with that, right? I know people say, I feel like I'm an empath, but then what? It's like, what do we do with that information?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And, I'm really all about helping people feel more empowered about their sensitivity.
Yeah.
And, it's so easy to feel like that's a curse. And
Yes.
it's a very heavy burden until we really learn how to manage our energy.
Yes.
Our relationships are very complicated. We get into these very complex relationships with what I call energy vampires, what everybody else calls narcissists, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's like really challenging. And then there are a few things we can do to really learn how to manage our energy and own that part of us, take responsibility for the things we need to do as sensitives. And then it becomes this massive superpower. It's like your superpowers, like why you're here. And I really feel like that gift of sensitivity that allows us to feel what other people are feeling, to tell what they're feeling emotionally, maybe feel what they're feeling in their body, sometimes even tell what they're thinking, it's like a built-in MRI and X-ray machine for healers.
Yeah.
So people who are sensitive are meant to be healers, helpers, caretakers, to help people that, we have super kind, gentle, compassionate hearts. We really, 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 really care a lot about humanity. And we just need some kind of basic skills on how to set boundaries, how to manage our energy so we can walk through the world. And, I think everyone has this experience. This is sort of my secret shame I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
Is that until
no one's listening, it's just us.
Okay, good. Until I learned how to really do this, I would be have that moment. It was always Costco. I don't know what it is about Costco.
Okay.
But I would get 20 minutes into Costco. I'd have basically a little mini nervous breakdown. I'd be like, I don't know why I came here. I can't remember my name. And I can't remember where I parked my car.
Yeah.
And I'd ditch my shopping cart in the middle of Costco, have a slight nervous breakdown.
So is it just too many things coming at you and you're like,
too many things coming at me, too many people, too much noise and stimulation. And just too much. It's like overload
Yeah.
of sensory overload and energetic overload. And since I learned how to do this, I no longer have nervous breakdowns in Costco. I'm really proud of myself. I know where my car is. I can remember my name.
I can find my wallet when
I
it's
can
time to
find,
check out, you know?
you behave
Well,
like
I
a normal
mean,
person in public.
you do kind of have to prepare yourself, right? When you're going out for anything.
Right.
For me, I will literally be like, today is errand day and I'm going to go run all these errands. And I will ditch my errands halfway through and be like, no, I'm done. I'm done peopling for today. Like
Yeah.
and even if it's like, there's not a ton of people, but I really do say to myself, like Walmart or something, I'll say like, I really have to be in the mood or prepared to go because it's like, if there's too many people, I'm like, I just can't handle it because I start to feel invisible. So
Yeah.
when we're feeling like we're sensitive, if we may call ourselves an empath or something, how do you teach people how to set boundaries? Because I feel like a lot of people say, I feel bad. I don't want to say no, those kinds of things. And they kind of use that I'm really sympathetic or I'm a sensitive or, empath. I have to do this thing. How are we setting boundaries? How do we
Well,
do
there's two really important ways that I do it. And the first way comes from being an energy healer and being a Reiki practitioner for 25 years now.
Yeah.
So, and as a psychic and intuitive, like I would see people's energy. And I noticed in all the sessions that I've done that empaths have this like spongy kind of porous energy field. So we all have an
Okay.
energy field.
Okay.
It's our life force energy that extends beyond our body, called the aura. It has a lot of different names.
Okay.
And empaths have like a sponge. People who are not empaths have like a really distinctive bubble, like a really distinctive energetic barrier around them. And we don't, we're like a sponge with this like porous. That's why we get to Walmart or Costco. And what happens is the sponge is full.
Right.
And then you go into something called empathic overload. It sort of blows your nervous system, blows all your circuit breakers, puts you in fight or flight. Or if you're an empath, into fawn, usually, which is like a people pleasing tendency.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I figured out was, well, if I help people become more energetically boundaried, then it kind of gives us a leg to stand on to do the harder side of boundaries, which is basically learning how to say no.
Right.
Like a boundary is just a really fancy way to say no. Boundaries are knowing when we're a yes and when we're a no, and finding really clear ways to communicate that.
Right.
With people. But we start with this energy, like grounding ourselves. This is sort of what I call energy hygiene. Energy management practices. We have to ground ourselves. We have to clear the energy we pick up from other people. We have to reset our bubble. And so now I do this when I'm in the car before I go into Costco. I do it halfway through Costco before I have my little mini nervous breakdown. When I come out of Costco and I'm sitting in the car going, woo, and then I can function.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So my goodness gracious, it's so true. And it's so funny to talk about boundaries. And then it's like, it's just you saying yes or no. But, when we're people pleasers, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I've worked on that for a long time. So I'm doing okay with that. I can set boundaries. I can say yes. I can say no. But I have friends who are like, oh my gosh, I can't say no. It's like, do you want to do this thing? I don't, but I can't say no because it's going to hurt, but it's really not going to hurt. Maybe it'll feel weird at first.
There's a couple of things we have to worry about there. I think it's sensitives. One of them is that we really have to find a lot of really nice ways to say no.
Yeah.
And I say, like, get in your journal, write down 10 really nice ways to say no.
Yeah.
And then look in the mirror and practice saying them while you can look yourself in the eye. And my go-to is no, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very gracious. It's really good for any time. No, thank you is my go-to. And so finding nice ways, we have to be nice about it as sensitives.
Right.
We're kind, really. And then what really happens is because we're dialed in to what the other person is feeling and thinking, we say no. This comes up for me with my kids,
Okay.
My kids are adults, but it still happens, right? So I know if I say no to them, they're going to have their feelings about what I say no about, right? And then I have to feel my fear or shame or guilt around saying no. Then I have to feel all their stuff about feeling it. And so now there's just this big ball of uncomfortable feelings that I'm stuck with. And it's easier just to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So,
and I remember when I was learning love and logic, and it's very much like setting these boundaries, but in a nice way. And I
yeah,
remember with my kids, my kids would say like, "Hey, mom," whatever, like if there was a vending machine or something that they wanted to get something out of, and they'd say, "Do you have any quarters?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I sure do." And they say, "Well, can I get?" "No, I'm sorry." You know what I mean? I had to learn, like, I wasn't going to say no. I wasn't going to lie and fake the no. I wanted them to learn, like, because you want to learn those things of somebody said no to you and you're going to survive it. You know what I mean?
right.
They can have their feelings. I don't have a problem with that. But
And
it was that practice.
a lot of empaths really have a problem with that.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
what happens is we need to learn how to, I always say to learn how to tolerate, to learn how to like
Yes. Yeah.
sit with someone else's reaction.
Yeah.
That person is allowed to have their feelings about your no.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to take that out on you,
Right.
right? Or that's another boundary. Like
Yes.
you're not allowed to take that out of me. And then eventually we learn that. See, the thing that I think empaths don't know really is that boundaries make people feel safe.
Yeah.
So if you can't, especially children, but really anybody,
Yeah.
and if people can't feel your boundary, they don't really feel safe with you,
Yeah.
which is not something we think. Also, having boundaries breeds respect. So
Yeah.
when we set clear boundaries, clear, kind, compassionate boundaries, people respect us
Mhm.
and we respect other people. It's mutual respect.
Yeah.
It's totally on us to communicate our boundaries. It is not fair to expect other people to mind read where your boundary is and then get all mad when they don't do it.
Right.
So your boundary, and this is where I found freedom, empowerment, and self-mastery as a sensitive, was taking full 100% responsibility
Yeah.
for my boundaries, for my not only having them, but communicating them, and then if the communication doesn't go well, continuing to learn how to communicate them and follow up until it does. And then all of a sudden I'm free. I'm like free to go through the world, to not be afraid of people, to not avoid things. Because I feel like what happens with empaths is we get so anxious and so overwhelmed and so shut down that our world gets smaller and smaller and smaller
Yeah.
until all you can do is sit on your couch with your cat and watch Netflix.
Right.
And everything else like blows your circuits. And that's
Yeah.
not a very empowering way to
No.
live.
No, and I love that you were saying that we have to find a way to be able to handle whatever the other person, how they're going to react. And of course,
Yes.
of course, another boundary if they like throw a big fit, but because I sometimes laugh, when friends ask, "Oh, do you want to go do this thing?" And I'll be like, "No, no, thank you." They're like, "Oh, can you not make it?" "Oh, no, I can make it. I just don't think I want to go.
Don't want to go.
I don't want to go." And I want to honor myself. I want to honor my body. I want to honor, I was in a group text today and somebody was saying, "I'm having a hard time. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels today." And I said, "Are you listening to your body? Does it feel like you need to rest rather than you're trying to like, ugh?" And so it's okay to even say no to yourself and say like, I just need to listen to myself, listen to my body and what is happening. So
Yeah.
it's been a
Beautiful.
practice for sure.
Love that. Yeah. I think that kind of like, and that can be hard for us empaths because
Yeah.
even though we're so emotional, we don't always know what we feel.
Yeah.
What we so often know what other people feel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I have every idea what you feel and you feel, but I'm like, I don't know what I feel.
Right.
So we have to start sort of separating, teasing those apart. And when you have a big feeling or a big emotional reaction, you're like, well, whose is this? Is this even mine?
Right. Yeah.
And, is this my stuff? Is this my feeling? Is this my responsibility? Is this my job? Like, is this mine?
Right.
And so when I get in like all, in a kerfluffle, I think, is it mine? And we start teasing that apart. And then we are responsible for dealing with the things that are mine, are ours.
Yeah.
So I think we have to learn like really good self-care techniques, really good, listening skills, really powerful ways to express and healthy ways to express our own emotional life, which is usually quite rich and we're quite emotional people. And we need like beautiful, healthy daily practices of expressing our emotions, like journaling or meditating or, I don't know, all the different ways you can do that.
Yes.
But I think we have to start separating and asking, is it mine?
Right. Ugh. Well, and that's true because especially if you are an empath and you know you are, right? Sometimes, and I have learned that even just being in the church, what we call like being like prophetic, right? And walking in and going like, wait, why do I feel like this? Is this even my emotion? Like, why am I feeling like this all of a sudden? And it might not even be mine. So yeah, that's been definitely a practice of learning like, wait, why am I so anxious all of a sudden? Nothing happened. Like, but I just walked into a room where you're like, oh my gosh, something's happening. But it's like, is this mine? Let me check. Let me do a body
Right?
check.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah. And
So to,
absolutely it takes a while if you're not used to that to
right.
learn what you need.
Are you feeling trapped in a relationship that leaves you questioning your worth and sanity? Have you noticed the red flags and decided you can't live one more day in a toxic environment? Whether you've just left or are considering leaving a narcissistic partner, the book, Married to a Nice Guy, Getting Over Narcissistic Abuse is here to guide and support you. In this candid memoir, I share my 33-year struggle in a marriage to a nice guy that was marked by emotional manipulation and abuse, revealing how I broke free and reclaimed my life. If you've been waiting for a sign, this book is it. If you've ever felt isolated, confused, or hopeless in your relationship, Married to a Nice Guy, Getting Over Narcissistic Abuse offers the understanding and guidance you need to break free and start your journey to healing. You are not alone, and you deserve a life filled with love, respect, and happiness. Order your copy today and take the first step towards reclaiming your life. So talk to me about energy vampires. It's funny that you call them that. As I've been doing this podcast and talking to people like you, I love that you guys use that word because I always called people vampires and I didn't know that was a real thing. And that people would go like vampires. I go, they suck the life out of you. So, talk to me about energy vampires and what is it?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different kinds of energy vampires, but the basic idea is there are people like, there's some people in the world that are natural givers.
Yeah.
And the empaths and the sensitive are generally like that. And there are other people in the world that are the takers of the world. It's just the way of things, you know what I mean? But sometimes we get so far down the road that they're really taking a lot. And that's where we get into like narcissists.
Yeah.
We could sort of swap out the term energy vampire for narcissist, and you're going to get a good picture of that. These are like two ends of a polarity. So however empathic you are over here, you're going to kind of attract on the opposite end of the pole, and energy vampires are narcissists that meet you on that polarity.
Yeah.
So there's sort of a natural connection between empaths always and energy vampires often attract each other. So I'm telling you, you're going to have some of them in your life. You just will.
I know I do.
I know we all do. I mean, they're out there, you know what I mean? And sometimes they're really like predatory, narcissistic, personality disorder, psychopathic.
Yeah.
Which, I know you talk a lot about in your work.
Yeah.
I call them the predatory vampires, and they're really, if you've had a hit and run with one of those, you took some damage and you need some help recovering from that. There's no really, I think, performing them. They don't want to change. You're the battery. They drain you dry, and then they move on.
Right.
But there are other types of vampires too. They're what I call the victim vampires. And they're often people who really bad things have happened to them in their life, but they've just kind of learned to use that as sort of currency to get what they need to get their needs met. And they like need help. That's the person who calls you. And when the phone rings and you see them, you roll your eyes and you're like, oh my God, that person. Yeah. And they talk for an hour and they complain and they whine and they have the same trauma that they always have. They never take your advice because they are not really interested in actually changing.
Right.
And then they're like, oh my God, how are you? Oh, good. Gotta go. Bye. And
if they even ask how you are,
and they feel better and you feel worse. So those are, that's also a different kind. It's not really the same kind of as a narcissist, but I know people like that. Right.
Oh, no, for sure. Because you do have those, quote unquote friends in your life, or even people that you see, say, in activities you do in the community that not only are you rolling your eyes, but maybe you go, oh, God, I got to avoid that person because I just know I'm going to get stuck for an hour, like you said, listening to them, listening to the same problem that's always been there. And
Yeah.
some people do attract that. So, how do we know that we're being drained by one? Like, how? Maybe we're just around this person and they're telling us the same sob story they're always telling us. But how do we know that it's
If
draining
you feel like lying down on the floor and taking a nap when you're done talking with somebody, so that
us?
like there's
Yeah.
sort of this level of exhaustion, fatigue.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get this like weird sensation in your belly, and you're gonna want to like have the impulse to cover your solar plexus, like fold
Okay.
your arms across the chest or your chest because they sort of hook us energetically right in the
Wow.
solar plexus.
Wow.
Sometimes we get this like low occipital headache, like it's kind of like a headachy feeling when after you're talking to them. There are feelings of resentment or dread.
Yeah.
Resentment is a giant red flag, by the way, that you're overgiving in your relationships.
Yes.
So any point in part, I always recommend people do something I call the resentment inventory,
Okay.
where you write down everything in your life that you're resentful about. Take that as a sign that it's time to renegotiate your boundaries in that area of your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have nightmares about people who are
Yeah.
energy vampires. So I think it's like really, asking yourself, like, what's the energy exchange in that situation, in that relationship? And then, oftentimes these energy vampires are not people we can just cut out of our life. What do
Right.
you do if it's your kid or your parent or your spouse or your boss or people that you can't get away from or don't want to get away from? And that's where we go then into boundary setting, like that friend, except for the predatory vampires. And then I'm just like, you really just have to get out.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Because that's basically like a kind of an abusive relationship. And
Right.
it's really okay to stay there. But maybe that friend, you're like, when they call, you're like, I've only got 10 minutes
Yeah.
because I've got another thing. And then you talk to them for 10 minutes.
Right.
And maybe you talk to them for 10 minutes once a month, and that's all you've got,
Yeah.
And
so that's good. Like you said, just set it. So if you can't necessarily get rid of them, but setting that boundary with them to
Right.
say, hey, and so that makes you feel good, right? That, there's an ending to this conversation.
Yeah.
Though if you can get a word in edgewise to stop the conversation, that'll be good. But that will take practice.
Yes.
Definitely. That'll take
And you have
practice.
to go back to your no saying, gotta go.
You
I
have
also
to.
think we can really use our technology, and technology can either be an incredible energy vampire itself, or
Mhm.
it can be an ally.
Yes.
So, we've lost ourselves down YouTube rabbit holes and
Of course.
Facebook shenanigans and,
Right.
how much energy loss, how easy it is to get hooked into conversations with people that don't have your best interests at heart.
Yes.
So there's problems there, but also there's solutions. So there's no reason to pick up your phone every time it rings.
Yes.
I don't respond to people's texts until 24 hours later.
Wow.
unless it's like my kids or
Yeah.
my whatever, my inner circle people. And what happens is people know, oh, Lisa just doesn't get back to you until the next day.
Yeah.
And that's, you let things ring, to voicemail, and you let technology screen and create a barrier, a boundary between you and the world,
Yeah.
So there are other ways we can play that to our advantage.
That makes so much sense. This literally just happened before I got on with you. I was messaging a friend who had made an appointment with me, and all I was saying was like, please have this prepared, that kind of thing. Just kind of a quick, then I'll see you. And she said, I'm on the phone with a client. And I'm thinking, you didn't have to respond to my text. Like literally, you don't have to respond right this second. But I didn't say anything. And so the next text I sent, the first thing it said was no need to respond. And I just typed out a few more things. I think we think that, oh my gosh, the phone's ringing. I have your answer. It's like, you can see who it is. You don't.
Your technology works for you. You don't need to be at the beck and call of people 24/7, and people will just get used to whatever your pattern is.
Well, and remember when we didn't used to have phones tied to our hands,
the best day of my life was when I discovered that do not disturb button on my phone.
Oh yeah.
And I basically never, it's always on do not disturb. Like
I know. It's so funny.
airplane mode is another good one, you know?
Seriously. Oh, do not disturb. And the only people who can get through are my kids. And it's like,
That's right.
that's it. That's it.
That's it.
That's
Yes.
all I need. And they are welcome to call me anytime, anything, you know, but they're on my favorite list. You know what I mean?
So it can really help to use those things.
Yes. And so, okay, so how do we know if we're the energy vampire?
Wow. I always want to like hold everyone's hand before we have this conversation.
Okay.
Say it's going to be okay.
Be really
But
nice.
it's okay. We love you anyway. But
Yes.
a lot of times what happens with empaths is if you don't learn how to manage your energy and you're not taking responsibility for your boundaries, you can become an energy vampire. And think
Okay.
about how vampires are made. So the big vampire comes, drains all the life out of somebody
Yes.
until that person is empty, and then they become a vampire.
Oh,
And that can really happen to us as sensitives, where we don't set boundaries, we don't take care of ourselves, we don't do self-care, we don't say no, and then we're drained, and now we're the vampire.
yeah.
And it's very, very easy to fall into the role of being a vampire if you're an empath and not even know you're doing it. So most of the time, people don't know they're being a vampire.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
no.
just like feels like being really needy and not like knowing where to go or how to get your needs met.
Yes. And I guess like some of the things we talked about before, that self-care, and I don't know, I'm just trying to think of different things, you know, that you do to take care of yourself, you know, when you're with yourself, rather than thinking every single time I have a need in my body or whatever, I have to go get it elsewhere. So I guess being aware that I'm taking
Hmm.
care of my needs. I'm listening to my body and taking care of my needs now here on my
Yeah,
own. You know what I mean? Maybe, I don't know.
I think so. I mean, if you really want to do it up, you do some inner child work, you know,
Right.
and you really like look at these parts of you. There's an inner child in all of us, and that everyone's inner child is an energy vampire. And
Oh,
so what happens is we just like children are. Children
yes.
are
Yeah.
like they're just that's the nature of us as humans,
Yeah.
you know? And it's okay. We're allowed to be needy. We're allowed to have needs and wants and desires and to be every single one of us is a victim. We've all been victimized,
Yeah.
you know, and we just are. It's okay. It's like, what are we going to do about it though? Are we going to allow those things to strengthen us and teach us how to take care of ourselves? You know, like you have, you know, you went from being a victim to being the victor, to being victorious,
Right.
to being
Right.
empowered through your process. Right.
Right. Right.
And, and me too, in all the ways that I've learned how to work through my sensitivities until I feel like, you know, a super ninja, you know?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so that's what we do. We do inner child work. We learn how to take care of ourselves the best we can,
Yeah.
whether that's taking care of your body, taking care of your emotional needs, you know, adding adequate support systems. So one of the kinds of energy vampires I talk about in my book, I call them situational energy vampires.
Okay.
Because we all fall on hard times. And there will be a time in your life where you've had the diagnosis where hurricane knocked your house down, or,
Right.
you know, whatever, your country's at war. You know, there's a lot of crazy shit going on out there right now.
Right.
We all
Yeah.
fall on hard times. And yet we can become temporarily unable to handle it, to meet our own needs.
Yeah.
And then we call on the resources that are around us. Hopefully we get the help we need. We get out of that time and we go back into a stage of our life where we are good and we can also help other people and help ourselves. But really, and being an energy vampire, it's more of a process that can happen to anyone,
Right.
not just a specific kind of person that we have to avoid.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I like that idea of that. Sometimes that's situational, you know, sometimes we do get, you know, we're going to be a little more needy than other times.
Right?
And
Hard things happen to all of us,
yes.
you know?
Well, and that for sure happened, you know, after my divorce, I felt like I was doing a lot of help, you know, because I didn't know how to get out of the pit, you know, but I had a lot of friends help me. And then, you know, but then also working on myself, and then also going like, okay, some of these things I can do on my own now. Like I'm okay, you know? So yeah, I totally see that. Yeah. But I guess if it's all the time, that might be a little hard, you know?
Right. It needs to be reciprocal, you know, so that ideally we're in a 50-50 relationship with our people. where of course we're taking sometimes, we're giving sometimes. That's the way our hearts work. Our hearts are meant to give, both give and receive, right? So when it's more or less equalish over time, those are relationships we feel very comfortable in, right? We're like, oh, that person has my back and I'm there for them and they're there for me and it's good. And then we are that way with ourselves too. So we learn how to care for ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Spiritual practice can be a huge part of this prayer. And, our devotional practices and all of the things. We need to have a long list of activities that fill our energy tanks. So we're constantly filling ourselves. And oftentimes those are things that we ignore, like play, like fun, like creativity, like sexuality, like pleasure, like beauty, art, all these things fill us. So I'm sure you already the things you do that fill your energy tanks.
Yeah.
And we often don't give ourselves permission to do those things because, I don't know, we're supposed to be grown-ups.
Right.
We're like serious all the time, right?
Oh yeah. So serious. So serious to the point where life is miserable. You know what I mean? And so no, definitely. I've had conversations with people about creativity and things like that. We got to use both sides of our brain. And also that time to play. And that's the thing. I was in a speech therapist in the school district for 15 years and playing with the preschoolers, teaching them while playing was so important. They learn so much better that way. And I'm like, why do we stop doing that? Like where along the way?
So important for us as humans. It's so rejuvenating for the spirit. It's so good for your health in every single way. Such an important thing to do to fill our energy tanks. When our energy tanks are full, it's really hard to become an energy vampire. There's just this idea that you have to constantly be giving, and we're giving from an empty cup. Then of course you're an energy vampire. So you have to fill your cup, fill your cup, fill your cup. It's almost like your biggest priority. And when your cup is full, then you, especially for those of us that are in service to humanity, otherwise we burn out our health, we have nervous breakdowns, we become ill, we crash our health, we, blow up our relationships. It's bad. So we need to really honor that filling your tank should come first. And that's not the way we're programmed,
No, it's really not. But we do need to take those times. And so, I want to encourage everybody who's listening to really think about what is it that brings you joy? Not for, to get paid to do it or, I always think about like, I want to learn how to dance, not learn how to dance. I just want to take a dance class just for fun.
That's what I do. Right. So I'm a dancer and I dance every single weekend and all during the middle of the week. That's my thing that I do. And it brings me joy and fills me. Sometimes I dance in my kitchen, but I actually belong to a dance group. And I love that. I know I dance every weekend and I was a ballroom dancer for a long time. I've done all the things. And that for me brings me the most joy. But maybe you just want to play board games or maybe you want to go bowling. Maybe it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be really like whatever's fun for you.
And you don't have to join a league or something like that. You know what I mean? And so when I got divorced, one of the things I wanted to do was try different sports and stuff like that, because he was so active that if I tried anything and I was better than him, he, had a fit like a toddler. And so like the energy vampire that he was. And so when I tried things like pickleball and stuff like that. And so thankfully I found some friends who want to play pickleball because everyone was like, come join a league. And I'm like, I just want to move my body and enjoy the sunshine. And you know what I mean? Like that. It's like, it became like a job if I'm going to join a league. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, some people that's fun.
Yes.
If you have a really strong competitive spirit,
yes,
then competition is fun, but it doesn't have to be, that can be anything like you're doing that's not hurting anybody. That's fun for you. Like, go ahead, go, and I'm kind of an introvert. A lot of sensitives and empaths are introverted. So a lot of my fun activities are like, I do crossword puzzles and puzzles and I garden and I take gardening classes and I don't know. I dance every weekend. I walk my dog. Like that's super fun for me. But it also, if you're extroverted, you may be really wanting to be around people. As a way to fill and there's no wrong way to do it. It's like whatever is fun for you is what you should do.
Right. It's so funny because I always thought I was so extroverted. And then someone told me that you are where you recharge. And I said, oh,
Yeah.
I'm an introvert
Yes, me
with
too.
extrovert qualities, and so that's why, oh my gosh, working on Zoom, right from no one else is here. I got my cat, you know what I mean? Like it's good because I was just out all day doing social things. Loved every second of it.
Mm,
Love every second of coming home to an empty house that's quiet. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
recharging that way. I was talking to another person that was on my show and she was talking about art and how we think that art, you have to be so great at it and whatever. And it's like, that's another thing you can do. Go and just buy some paints and a canvas or whatever, and just draw something or whatever, just because it feels good to stick that brush in
Right.
the water or in the paint or whatever. And
Adult coloring books,
oh, adult
crafts
coloring books.
like knitting, like all anything,
Yeah,
like all these things that, like I also like to knit. So I watch TV and knit, and
I love that.
that's really like
Yeah, I love
it's really fun for me. I watch gardening shows and knit.
that. You're already a 70-year-old lady.
I don't feel the I am.
You're preparing. No, my mom knit all her life, and she hated knitting in the summer. We're in Las
Yeah,
Vegas,
because it gets a
so
little hot.
it does, but it's like great any other time. And I just want to encourage everybody, like, think about just something that is fun for you. Like, what did you like doing as a child? Doesn't that help? I've been doing some inner child work. So it's like, I do try to think about, like, how was I as a child? What did I like? Those kinds of things. I've always just been this kind of creative person that isn't so amazing at any artistic thing, but I just enjoy whatever
Mm.
crafting. I do have my coloring books. I have my little cross stitch stuff. I love that kind of stuff. I have a little bit of ADHD, so I abandoned it halfway through, but I don't care. And
So I
that's
gotta have fun while you're doing it. And looking at art is just as good as doing it. So going to a
oh,
museum, going to a gallery, going to a concert, listening to
yeah.
some music, listening to live music, like, you know, taking in the beauty that the world has to offer,
Yeah,
being outside in nature and spiritual practice, devotional practice, all these things. When
yeah,
we prioritize those and keep ourselves full, our energy batteries and energy tanks full, then we don't have to worry
yeah,
so much. Then we're giving from this more full place. And
that's great.
yeah, it's really, I think, an important part of the process.
It feels like it is, like you were saying, almost a protection, right? So when we go out, we're not going to feel like we're not going to be drained like
Right.
immediately,
Put
right?
yourself
Because,
in your bubble.
okay,
Put yourself in your bubble and just imagine, pretend or visualize that bubble's around you
yeah,
and that you are the boss of it. I think of it as like your skin, like your skin
yeah,
keeps all your guts on the inside and the world on the outside.
right,
And and we
yeah,
need that, like, this bubble does the same thing, that so you and everything that's used on the inside, the world's on the outside, and nothing crosses this bubble without your permission. And you can fill it full of light, you know, and imagine, like, it's just, you're just glowing like a light bulb. And then you go do the things. Then you go on the airplane,
yes,
you go on the airplane, or you go to Costco, Walmart, like you go
yeah.
out to your office, wherever it is you're going, and see how you do. And though that's a game changer for empaths.
That is so smart. I
Yeah.
mean, I just feel like even if you're sitting here listening, you're like, I don't know if I'm an empath or not. It doesn't matter. I mean, I just think it's a good rule of thumb. We got to fill our tank. We can't pour from an empty cup. We cannot. We just
No,
can't.
no, you
And
can't.
we will feel, I mean, don't just think about those times where you're like, I'm so tired. I'm so this, I'm so that. And then somebody says, hey, can you do this thing for me? And what do you want to do? You want to like attack, you know what I mean? And so just think about that. Listen to yourself, listen to your body. And I have learned that before I learned how to set boundaries, I had learned that when I was irritated, resentful, like you were talking about earlier, that was my boundaries were being crossed because frankly, I didn't have any boundaries. And so, but somewhere in my body, I was like, hey, I think that might be my limit. But I hadn't told anybody I don't want to do
Right.
this or I don't want to allow that, but I just hadn't told them. And so I was just walking around resentful all the time for my boundaries to be, being crossed.
There's one more thing I want to say about that. That's super,
Okay.
like a mind bend here. If you think about how you feel when you ask your friend if they want to do something and they say yes, but they really mean no.
Yeah.
And then they're doing it and it feels icky.
Yes.
Because you're like, oh, like, I think they don't really want to do this. They don't really want to be here. Like, it creates, when you say yes, when you need to say no, you're not actually doing anyone else a favor.
Yeah.
They know it doesn't feel good and it makes you untrustworthy. We can't really trust people unless we can trust their ability to say no.
Yeah.
Because we're always second guessing. We're always like, ooh, she said yes. I think she meant, now there's a weird energy and I feel weird and it's kind of gross.
And you can tell they don't want to be there.
They don't want to be there. And then it's yucky for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, you're not really doing anyone. You're making people uncomfortable and you're making yourself untrustworthy if you're not being honest with your yes and no's.
Yes. So, okay. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being here and talking to us about all this stuff. Is there any final thoughts you want to leave us with before we say goodbye today? I don't know. I didn't know where to kind of be ending this, because I just felt like this was a lot of good information.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I think that the one thing I would say, read my book. So Energy Healing for Empaths.
Yes. And we'll have a link for that.
Yeah. And you can get it on Audible. It's got a lot of great tips and tools and techniques. It's very practical. I would say that's really good. And yeah. And thank you so much for the conversation and talking about this. It's, I love.
It was it was really good. I like the visuals you gave me and stuff, because I'm a very visual person, and good reminders that there's a lot of things that I'm doing well. And I hope that people were encouraged to start treating themselves better to be out in the world as a better version of yourself. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And guys, if anything that you heard today resonated with you, please go to social media and respond. And of course, leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. And of course, connect with Lisa. We'll have all of her information in the show notes. So thank you so much, Lisa, for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Laura. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining me today on the That's Where I'm At podcast. Did the story today resonate with you? Do you think others would benefit from hearing the stories we are telling? Please go to Apple or Spotify right now to leave a review so everyone in podcast land will know you love the show. We want to continue sharing stories of hope and healing. I'll be back next time. I'll talk to you then.